Yes, that's right. It's time to look at who has been sailing what, where, and how fast. Yes, that's right. It's Joe here for Joyrider TV, back with your July update for the Global Speed Stick competition. And the competition has been absolutely going crazy. So many new entries over the last 4 weeks. And I've got your mid-season stats. There are now 26 countries entered on the Speed Stick, over a total of 59 different classes of boat. In the boat classes, in third place at the moment with 19 entries, we've got the Hobie 16 solo fleet. And then in second place are the F-18s with 21 boats. Great job there, all the F-18 sailors. And then, as you may possibly expect, the most popular class represented has been the regular Hobie 16s with a total of 33 boats represented so far on the stick. Okay, so in this update video, we're just going to be looking at the new entries and any notch-ups that we've had. So let's dive in. So starting off, we've got Dan sailing a Hobie Wave out of Melbourne Beach, Florida, USA, with a speed of 11.10 knots. What a great looking venue to go for a sail. Then in 145th, we've got Sarah and Nate sailing a Hobie 18, using a flag instead of a jib. I believe that the flag doesn't carry quite as much sail area as the regular Hobie 18 jib. On Lake of the Woods, Ontario, Canada, with a speed of 11.14. And then moving up the chart, we have got in 139th, we've got Rick sailing this Hobie Wave with a jib in Canada, Victoria Beach Yacht Club on Lake Winnipeg with a speed of 13 knots. And then in 135th place, we've got Thomas, and it's the first entry from the wetter 4.4 trimarans. Nice. Sailing in Sweden, near to Stockholm, with a speed of 14 knots. Great job there, Thomas. And then we have Matt on the getaway, sailing in Moreton Bay, Queensland, Australia. This was actually a day trip to Moreton Island, which turned into a flying speed run unexpectedly, with a speed of 14.10. And then in 129th, we've got Nate and Rorin sailing a Hobie 18 Magnum, sailing out of the Delta Beach on Lake Manitoba, Canada, with a speed of 14.67. And this was actually Nate and Rorin's second ever outing. Great start to this father and son sailing career. And then in 127th, we've got Gabriel on the second wetter 4.4 trimaran. Yes, all the wetter 4.4 sailors, get on the stick. It seems to be becoming a new category. Sailing on Lake Nacra, USA, with a speed of 14.8 knots. And Gabriel is actually challenging all of the Hobie 16s that he used to see regularly to their own speed competition. So let's see who can get out and beat this speed. And then in 125th, we've got a 3-up speed for Niels, Max and Caroline on a Hobie 16 sailing out of Zandvoort, Netherlands, with a speed of 14.9 knots. Great job there, guys. Looked like a lot of fun. And then in 123rd position, we've got Craig and Jenny sailing a Hobie 16, Lake Quinault, Washington, USA, speed 15.09. In 122nd, 3-up again for Lachlan, Patrick and Gabriel, sailing on the Ribble Estuary, Lytham in the UK, with a speed of 15.1 knots. Heck of a day out. And then in 121, we've got Dirk and Grant sailing the Hobie 21 SE. Yes, this mighty boat absolutely charging on the Ottertail Lake in Minnesota, USA, with a speed again of 15.10. Also on 15.10, we've got David sailing the Smart Cat on the Gulf of Roses in Spain with a speed of 15.10. Now, David beforehand had only ever sailed radio-controlled boats, and this was actually his first time out on a real catamaran. Amazing the experience you can gain, not even getting your feet wet. All right, and then in 119th, we've got Pierre and Lynn sailing on Lac St. Joseph, Quebec, Canada, on the Hobie Tiger with a speed of 15.2. And then we're in 119th, pushing it up for Andreas sailing the Top Cat K4X on Forgensee, Bavaria, Germany. No stranger to these events, with a speed of 15.49. And Andreas said some big wipeouts went into the creation of this notch up. Great job, Andreas. And then we're in 116th for Justin and Peter, sailing the SB20 keelboat in Dunamanus Bay, Southwest Ireland, with a speed of 15.5 knots. Great to have some keelboat action on the speed stick. Yes, that's right. Doesn't matter what type of boat you're sailing, you can get on the speed stick. It could be a catamaran, trimaran, monohull of any shape or size, foiling, non-foiling, but just it has to be some sort of boat. That is the bottom line. And then in 115th, we've got James and Stephen sailing a Hobie 16. This is literally just in on Dauphin Island, Alabama, USA, with a speed of 15.61. And what a great, unique looking 16 here. In 114th, we've got Davis sailing Getaway on Clear Lake, California, USA, with a speed of 15.8 knots. And Davis did mention that he possibly would have got a higher speed had he not been transporting a cooler full of beer. And then in 113th, we've got Kevin and Sebastian sailing a Hobie 16 in France on Bay de Pouliguen with a speed of 15.9 knots. And then in 112th, we've got Timo and Tina sailing a Hobie 16 from Cuxhaven on the North Sea, north coast of Germany, with a speed of 16 knots. And then we have Marek and Rick sailing the Hobie FX1 from Victoria Beach Yacht Club on Lake Winnipeg, Canada, speed 16 knots. They were going absolutely great guns, but unfortunately a pitch pole slowed them down significantly. And then in 110th, we've got Craig notching it up, sailing the Hobie 16 solo out of Lake Quinault, Washington, USA, with a speed of 16.09, putting in a big session to achieve this speed. And then we're jumping up the leaderboard now to 104th, where we have Gabriel and Herman sailing a Nacra 5.7. Yes, from Zandvoort in the Netherlands, with a speed of 16.4 knots. And then we're heading across the world to Singapore for the next notch up for Ron, and singing on a 2-win Twin Cat 15. Yes, that is a boat that I have certainly never seen in real life. Looks nice, with a speed of 16.5 knots. Great job there, guys. And then in 98th, we've got Robin and Brian sailing the mighty Inter 20 Nacra on Lake Waccamaw, North Carolina, USA, with a speed of 16.6 knots. All very tight here in the middle of the leaderboard. And then in 96th position, we've got Jean and Suzanne sailing the F16 Viper. Again, Lake St. Joseph, Quebec, Canada, with a speed 16.8 knots. And then in 93rd position, sailing from Laguna Madre Texas, USA on the getaway. Yes, we have Justin. Nice one, Justin, getting a speed of 16.94 knots. And then just ahead of Justin with a speed of 17 knots, sailing out of Jeddah in Saudi Arabia on the Hobie 16 solo, we've got Zad. Great job there, Zad. Great to have you on the leaderboard. And then in 91st position, we've got Samuel sailing the Hobie 16 solo on Lake Mendocino, California, USA, with a speed of 17.8 knots. In 90th position, we've got Tina and Timo sailing the Hobie 16 out of Cuxhaven on the North Sea in Germany with a speed of 17.10 knots. And then this time Timo going it alone in 89th position on the Hobie 16. Again, same venue, Cuxhaven, with a speed of 17.10. Same speed, there we are. All right, and then in 97th, we've got Albert sailing the Hobie 14 in Struis Bay, Western Cape, South Africa, with a speed of 17.4 knots. Now, Albert is just about to turbocharge his Hobie 14 with the turbo jib kit, and I think this is going to make quite a difference to the top speed. Great job, Albert. And then sailing the Hobie 16 solo, we've got Rick. We're back to Victoria Beach Yacht Club, Lake Winnipeg, Canada, with a speed of 17.6 knots. Okay, then in 80th, jumping up the leaderboard, we've got Ben and Chris sailing the F18 Nacra Infusion out of Galveston Bay, Texas, with a speed of 17.61 knots. And not only is Ben one of the youngest helms on the speed stick, but he is definitely the youngest Formula 18 helm in the world, as far as we know. Great job there, Ben, and well done, Chris, for hanging on tight. So Alex and Arthur previously sailing in Venice, as you can see, but they have recently been on holiday in Vassiliki, Lefkas, Greece, right here, sailing a Hobie 16 with a speed of 17.93 knots. And then this was just yesterday in 69th position, yes, during a coaching session, Gunnar sailing with myself on the Hobie 16, sat in, no trapeze, on an absolutely flying downwind leg with a speed of 18.2 knots on the Hobie 16. Great job, Gunnar, for keeping us in one piece. It was blowing. All right, and then in 68th, we've got Alva sailing solo on the Hobie 16 in South Sweden, with a speed of 18.2 knots. And then we're heading to Veluwemeer in the Netherlands, where we have Sander notching it up on the Dart 18 solo with a speed of 18.4 knots. And then we're heading to Poland, to the Zerg Reservoir, Warsaw, with a speed of 18.9 knots for Oscar and Kinga, sailing the Hobie Tiger. Great job there, guys. And then up the leaderboard to 57th for Jason, sailing solo on a Hobie 16 right here in Vassiliki, Lefkas, Greece, possibly the easiest place to sail fast on the planet, of 18.9 knots. And that was solo no trapeze for the Solo No Trapeze Championship. That is a subcategory of this year's speed stick, so it seems. Then in 54th, we've got Bernhard and Karsten sailing the Hobie Tiger right here in Vassiliki, Lefkas, Greece, with a speed of 19.1 knots. In 53rd, we've got Lewis and Angus, again, right here on a Hobie Tiger, with a speed of 19.2 knots. And then a very exciting day out for this notch up for Kai and John, sailing the Mark III Nacra Infusion FCS, full foiling, sailing out of Ocean Springs, Mississippi, USA, with a speed of 19.2 knots. Yes, this is the location for the Hobie 16 International Championships this year. Okay, and then in 49th position, we've got Scott and Eames sailing the Hobie 16 on Cultus Lake, Oregon, USA, with a speed of 19.4 knots. Then in 45th, we've got Scott, again, this time solo. Same venue, Cultus Lake, Oregon, but this time with a speed of 19.5 knots. Great job there, Scott. And then in 41st, for Matthew, sailing on the Chesapeake Bay, Maryland, USA, solo on the Hobie 16, notching in a speed of 19.8 knots. And this is a personal best for Matthew. So very well done, Matthew, for getting that speed in there.
Hello, Joe. Here from San Blas with a Nacra 17 MK1, trying to beat the shit out of the speed here. Stefan, salut. Regarde, magnifique.
And then absolutely charging here in 38th position, we've got Tyler sailing the Formula Wave out of Point Sailing in Beasley's Point, New Jersey, USA, with a speed of 19.9 knots. Flying. And then also flying in 37th, we've got Koen and AJ sailing the F16, Nacra F16, on Gravelingenmeer, Netherlands, with a speed of 19.97 knots. So much charging going on in this update. Then in 36th, we've got Thomas and Pippi, who are from Sweden, but this entry goes in for Italy on the F16 Viper, with a speed of 20 knots on the nose. Yes, the entry goes in on the venue that you were sailing, because that is actually the more important information rather than which country you are representing on the stick. And then in 34th, we've got Oliver sailing the Lowrider A-Class out of Quebec, Canada, with a speed of 20.10. And then we're heading up the leaderboard to 25th, where we have Jerry and Jeff showing fine style on the Hobie 16 here, sailing out of Ocean City, New Jersey, USA, with a speed of 20.95. Yes, the top of the leaderboard is very fast. And then in 21st, we've got Rob and Guy just in with a speed of 21.20, representing Brighton Sailing Club on tour in Vassiliki, Lefkas, Greece, right here on a Hobie 16. Okay, also sailing right here, we've got Liam, one of the instructors from the Wild Wind Beach, notching it up on a Hobie 16 solo with a speed of 21.5. And it has a 0.1 increase in speed just to stay ahead of Mr. Goose. In 13th position, this time Guy taking the helm on the Hobie 16. Right here, Brighton Sailing Club on tour again. And this is possibly the best photo of the year with a speed of 22.2 knots. Great job there, guys. Also on 22.2 knots was me. Yes, it's my fastest solo speed of the season. Of course, sailing right here on the Hobie 16 with the Dark Matter sails from Whirlwind Sails with 22.2 knots. And then we are into the top 10. So in 9th position, we've got Freddie and Peter sailing the Nacra 580 in Belgium, in Bankberg, with a speed of 22.8 knots. Yes, from the Formula 18 Europeans, again, another big speed, this time sailing an F18 Exploder Scorpion. We've got Quinton and Xander with a big speed of 23.10 knots. The biggest notch up of this month's leaderboard, 7th position. Yes, sorry about this. It was me sailing with Ridley, just 14 years old and 45 kilos, crewing the boat on the Hobie 16 with the Super R black sails. Here, Vassiliki, Lefkas, Greece, of 23.81 knots. To the podium, I hear you cry. In 3rd place overall, and by far the fastest ever Hobie 16 solo, We've got Stephen Ned Kelly sailing out of Lake Weber, Queensland, Australia, with a speed of 25.8 knots. And then it's the charge of the foiling A classes for the top 2 spots. Peter on Lake Balaton in Hungary with a speed of 30.3 knots, and then still on top of the leaderboard, and this is definitely going to be a tough speed to beat. Can you beat this speed? Foiling sailors, get involved. But Mason is still looking far too comfortable up there on sailing on Lake Kutharaba, Queensland, Australia, with a speed